Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the next session here of the Plainview Old Bethpage Music Department Reopening Plans. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mr. Michael Rogers. I'm the Director of Music and Performing Arts. I'm sure I've seen many of you at concerts and different school events, but I'm certainly incredibly grateful to have you all here this evening, that I can hopefully go through some questions that maybe you have on your mind, and at the end we'll have some time for some other questions. So for the evening, what I did to keep a little bit of organization to the questions, I've disabled the chat, but the very first thing in the chat that you should be able to see is a Google form for a question. So I'd ask that you please just fill out the Google form. I have another screen here that will populate the question right in front of me. And if I don't get to answer your question tonight, or you have something more specific, I'll also collect your email address and I'll get back to you in the next couple of days to make sure that all your questions are answered. So I have some assistance here with the tech team of Plainview Old Bethpage. So if you don't see that link, I'll ask them to make some adjustments so that it can be seen. But yeah, please populate your questions on the Google form so I can collect them there, and then I can answer them all at the end. I know we're expecting a good turnout this evening, so I'm excited to see everybody, and I'm just gonna get started with our questions in just another minute or two. I want to give people a chance to sign on. It's only 2 minutes after 7, so once everybody's able to get on, then I will get started.
Mr. Rogers?
Yes?
Are you going to do an overview of the programs or just take questions?
A little bit of both, actually. I'm going to start with going through questions that have already been asked, that have been sent through, and then I can do a walkthrough of the program.
Thanks, because I missed the other meeting, so.
No problem. I'm happy to do that. And then again, as I said, as questions come in, use the Google form that's in the chat, put your question up, and then I'll do what I can to answer those at the end, and I'll answer a couple of live questions at the end as well. So. I hope everybody is doing well. I hope everybody had a good summer. I hope everybody's, today was a beautiful day, so I hope everybody was able to enjoy some of that. I know today was the first day for the staff, and they were working as hard as I've ever seen them work. I'll tell you that. They were really doing a pretty fantastic job. I got to see some music teachers today and talk to them, and they're excited and they're eager to make some music with the kids, which is just incredible. It's going to be a really wonderful year. We're going to make the best of it all. Just another minute. At 5 after 7, I'll start going through the questions that have already been sent to me. Looks like we have a good amount of people so far. We have almost 70, which is great.
Hello, Mr. Michael. I just had a quick question about the form, Google form you're talking about. Where should I see the link?
It should be in the the chat, actually.
Okay. I just see the YouTube live stream link, but I don't see the Google form link.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else can see it, maybe. I don't know.
I can't see it either, Mike.
Are you on your phone?
I can't see it either, and I'm on a computer.
Yeah.
I'm on my iPad.
I
Sorry,
can't see it
Mike.
either on an iPad.
Okay. Hold on one second.
It's a YouTube link to this meeting. It's not a form.
Yeah, I had put it in before. I thought it would appear. We're working on posting it in the chat right now. Let me just bring it up, and I'll get it posted right this second. Give me 1 second. I'm multi-screening at the time. I have 3 different screens up doing 3 different things. Okay. Okay, that should be able to appear in the chat in just a minute or couple minutes or so. I just had to send it to the tech team to post in the chat. Okay. Let's see, try something else here. Hold on. It's actually might be a little easier. There we go.
Got it.
Okay, great. There we go. Perfect. All right, and I have my Google form up here. So as questions come in, I'll answer those at the end, and we will get started answering the questions that have already been sent to me, the big keynote points that I can go through, and then I'll go through some of the opening plan, and then I'll answer some of the questions. And like I said, if I don't get to a question tonight, or something specific, I will answer it later because I'll be able to get your email via the Google form. So if I don't get something answered, please, I will do my best to answer it by the end of the week, I promise. Okay, let me just start with a little drink of water. And here we go. Okay, as I said before, welcome to this evening's music reopening plans. And my name is Mr. Rogers. I'm so happy to be with you all this evening. And as people sign on, I will welcome them as well. So I received a list of questions last week that was sent to me from a group of stakeholders and parents, and I'm hopefully going to be able to answer as many as I can now. And then I'll go over a little bit of the plan later and give you some updates on where we're at. So the first question that was sent to me had to do with choir. Now this was primarily directed towards the high school choir, but this would be all rules for all singing as well. So it said, if the choir is singing in mass, do the students still need to be 12 feet apart? Is this a school guideline or the CDC recommendation? Do you know where parents can find that information? In Governor Cuomo's reopening plans, it was dictated that all vocal music, woodwind and brass wind instruments, as well as physical education classes, needed to be 12 feet apart. There was not necessarily a directive for wearing masks while singing. However, given that a majority of the choir classes at the high school level will be taking place in the auditorium, we are going to have the students have their face covered with masks, simply because there are cloth seats. So it'll help the expectoration rate there from being spread. And they'll be singing with masks on if they're singing at all 12 feet apart. That's not a rule I created. That's a rule that came down from the reopening plan, which is found on the governor's websites and all sorts of different things. We're just trying to do our best to enforce it. So, so that's the plan for singing with masks. Okay, there was a question in regards to marching band. How many students fit on the football field? Are there more fields that can be used? Can the band be separated into groups and rotate in and out to maximize playing time and collaboration? So I'm going to answer this question in two parts. First, on the standard 100 by 50 yard football field, we can safely fit 32 students 12 feet apart. So in order for me to have almost 180 marching band students on any field at any given time, I would need 4.5 football fields, which is pretty large. So right now we have a tentative plan that's been discussed with Dr. Miera, Ms. Mannion, and now I'm just working on some details with the building administration that if we can put put it through and make it happen, which I believe that it's going to be able to. We have to work out some details with security. We have to work out some details with building usage and things like that. The plan is to rehearse the marching band in sections. Now, I just need to be very clear that this is the best way we can bring kids together to play. They can't all 150 be together any place, but they can be together in 5 different places and have an effective rehearsal that way, rehearsing sectionals. And this would be including rehearsing in the gym, having a group rehearsing in the softball field, the softball outfield. This would be having kids on a practice field, having kids in the band room or the orchestra room, having kids on the bleachers. So with the 5 members of the marching band staff that we have, we'd be basically dividing them up into 5 different sections, doing different parts around, and we would rotate teachers or we'd rotate groups of kids so that they would all get a great experience. And basically the only group in a band, the only instrumentalist in the marching band or any band that doesn't need to be 12 feet apart are the percussionists. So we're pretty confident we can fit a number of them in one of the rooms in the school. Well, in the other places they may be able to practice elsewhere, but we just can't bring them all together at one time to play. We just don't have that type of space. As much as I would love to have them do that, it's just not possible. And with that, there comes a content question. And that primarily is when you get a marching band drill written for the music you have, you need to have everybody on the field to learn it, learn the movements and things like that. So the content for what marching band would be, if we do indeed commence it in the fall, would be to work on sectional work, learn the music, learn some fundamentals that involve marching and things like that. Because we know later on, if the football season does get postponed to the spring or another time during the year, the marching band's going to still have to rehearse then, learn their show so that they can perform during a halftime at 1 or 2 of the games of the year. So it's going to be a big commitment to do. As far as I know, we are one of the only, if not the only, marching band that has any type of plan to have the kids even attempt to do something. So we're going to do the best we can with it, but that's the best way that we can make that happen. And simply because there's just not enough space to hold almost 150 kids. We can use, again, several different places, but to put them all in one place, you need a significant amount of space that almost no area here in Plainview really has. The follow-up question to that was, will the marching band be allowed to meet additional hours outside during the nicer weather to accommodate and maximize their playing time? Right now, after school activities, I can't really take place after 1:30 at the high school level, and there's transportation things. Marching band has typically rehearsed on Saturdays. And again, as we work on the plan, which there are still some moving pieces to it, but once that happens, it doesn't change the restrictions that we have. If we can have those rehearsals, there will be a schedule that comes out as soon as we can get it out. I'm gonna have to work with the teachers on that to make sure that they're available, make sure that they can provide what's needed in the district logistically, like security, field measure, things like that. But that's all part of the plan that we're working on literally this week. So there was a question about more proficient students leading sections in wind ensemble, drum majors, and using different rooms, and optimizing the marching band's time together. I don't ever really have an issue with peer tutoring in terms of students helping students, but that still won't change the 12-foot requirement. The big thing is the drum majors always conduct a piece, and while in their different areas, they certainly can do that, they still have to be supervised by a teacher, no matter what. And students cannot contribute to a grade of other students. So we will always utilize our highest level of proficiency of students that we have and the levels that we have. But again, it doesn't change the restrictions and things we have to rehearse them. There was a question about them being 32 to a field, and I talked a little bit about that already, so I'm gonna go over that. And basically the next question said, can they use other areas? And yes, we can, which again, we're gonna try, all part of the plan. Okay. Will the school district allow ensembles to meet outside the scheduled time of the class period, given how many students are taking it? Maybe there could be a sign-up timesheets for students to attend other hours. Well, right now there are no after-school activities at all. So to do that would be very difficult. The students from elementary through high school all have a pretty packed schedule already. There are a lot of logistical things that would have to happen for students to rehearse outside in a large group. Because again, our ensembles can be upwards of 150 kids. I know the 5th and 6th grade band at POB Middle School has 120 kids. The 5th and 6th grade combined band at Matlin has 110. So finding space for that quantity of kids is difficult, and bringing them outside also means that they have to walk outside, spaced apart 6 feet, things like that. So I'm not inclined to think that that is something we can do right now. As things maybe normalize a little bit as we move forward, hopefully we can start to have a larger rehearsal at some point. But to bring them outside now is a very, very difficult task. And they would actually, I think, lose time playing if it was during even their period of time that they're supposed to have band. And the middle school doesn't have periods for ensembles anyway. So the next question is actually a pretty big one. And this is going to be applicable to really everybody from 4th grade through 12th grade because it has to do with pull-out lessons. The question is, how are pull-out lessons going to take place? If a student doesn't want to be pulled out to classes due to them only being in school a couple of days a week, what other arrangements can be made? Will any lessons be allowed to be rescheduled? Fridays in person? And what are virtual lesson options? So I'm going to go through this as well. We still fully intend to have live pull-out lessons. A live one-on-one lesson is irreplaceable in a lot of ways. We made our best with it in the spring because nobody was in school to have different available lesson options for kids. But it's really important to try to have that as much as possible. Now, I've already started conversations with the music staff that we know that kids, if they're only in school 2 days a week, may not want to leave certain classes because they don't want to fall behind, or they don't want to basically fall behind or lose time with those teachers that they need. And we understand that. So the goal is to try to pull them from their least restrictive time. And at the discretion of the teacher, we can offer different makeup lessons, which are primarily going to be done virtually. And that would also include Friday lessons, all done virtually, since Friday is not going to be in person for the middle school and the high school, 7 through 12. So again, we will work with everybody. We're not going to eliminate that piece, but we are going to be sympathetic to everything that has to happen. And we know that. And we know that a lot of the students who are involved in music do, in fact, take a lot of these high-level honors classes and things like that. But we will work with everybody. We will make sure that every kid gets their lesson. As of right now, given the space constrictions of buildings and spaces, it's most likely going to be a live lesson once every 2 weeks for most of the instrumental program. We just don't have the space or the time, especially at the elementary level where our instrumental teachers are split between 2 buildings, to get every kid in person in the space in 1 week. So what we have discussed and what we will most likely implement will be 1 live lesson followed by a week where they will have a virtual lesson to complete on their own time, followed by a live lesson the following week. So this way it doesn't also impact the schedule of being pulled out of class. They still have a live lesson. They have a lesson to reinforce what they've learned, and they can keep the progression of music flowing. And for the different levels, we fully intend to make sure that we work with the kids, we work with the students, we work with their families to make sure that that all works. And again, as I said before, at the discretion of the teacher, it is a really important thing to, for the live lesson to happen so that they don't lose that contact time. Certain things that are really better covered in person. Okay. 1 second. Okay. Can pull-out lessons be scheduled on remote learning days, so A and K on Tuesday and Thursday, or vice versa, L through Z? Why are our teachers only able to work with one teacher for lessons? This is another great question. Basically, at the high school level or the middle school level through the high school level, one day is live for one group of students and the other day is remote for one group of students. So if we just did remote lessons, then nobody would really have an opportunity to see their teachers. And different teachers have different grade levels and different specialties. So band teachers can only really teach band instruments and orchestra teachers can only teach orchestra. So to try to fit them all in on one day or try to do it all virtually would really be not the best interest of the kids, and it wouldn't be the best interest of the program. Okay. So there was a question, and somebody had mentioned that the spring wasn't the most successful time for some students during the lesson, and just doing the assignments wasn't really motivating to kids who want to learn music. And first, just like to apologize that that for whoever that was, or if this is a shared feeling, there certainly wasn't an intention for anybody to have a negative experience. So apologies to them. There were lesson content in every school, in every building. But now that we're back either full-time K to 6 or hybrid for 7 through 12, we do have the option to have an in-person lesson. So the lesson itself, the whole program will just take a different shape because we'll have that one-to-one content. So there's that. We will be able to move on from last year to this year. And as I said, it'll be at least one in-person lesson, one virtual lesson, depending on spacing, as I clarified before. And we'll make that the best experience we can for the students. Okay. All right, there was a question about if the high school students meet for 5 days, then they're only in school for 2 days with a period that's 3 minutes shorter. How can they get anything done with getting their instruments out and put away? This is a great question. And I can go through a little bit of some of that planning that happened today. And working with some of those teachers, we're going to have as much set up as we can. We're working with building administration on possibly having some things available in different places rather than just the band room, going to the gym when they're going to have rehearsals there. We're going to try to keep as much as we can there, if we can. Again, space is at a premium, and there are rules regarding that. But we've already discussed having procedures to make that as effective and as quick as possible with additional support if we need, but really trying to make that happen as best as we can. I don't think it will be that big of a problem simply because on the days that the groups meet, there are going to be half the amount of students that they normally would be. So we can do that quickly and efficiently and get as much playing time in as we can. We always have, that's always the goal, no matter what it is. And as we go through the first couple of weeks of school, I'm sure that we will find changes that we will make and adjustments that will be made and try to keep that intact as possible. We want to make sure that they're playing as much as possible and doing it as safely as possible. There was another comment about the music classrooms being far from other areas of the building. Some students are rushing to get to their next classes. If they're being let go, keeping social distancing protocol will be something concrete in place that allows these students additional hall passing time. We have never really allowed additional hall passing time because we can't let kids out in the hall without a pass or without the bell ringing. But I can assure you that with some of the procedures that we have discussed today and working with the staff, we'll let all of the teachers in the building know when the students who are in those performing arts programs that they will get to class, and everybody here has got to work together. So that's really the best plan we have so far, is just keeping everybody informed and well informed on the students participating in these ensembles, so that there isn't confusion or there isn't penalty for students if they are strolling into class a minute after the bell rings. But we're going to do our best. There was a question also in regards to their student making their schedule and buying lunch and eating at the beginning of rehearsal. This year, we can't allow students to eat in the classrooms at the high school level. We understand that's going to be a challenge. We certainly are sorry to hear that. We'll talk to the building administration on a few ideas they may have about possibly allowing students to eat quickly first. We're sorry for this inconvenience, but that's again just a guideline that we can't really get around. There was a question about a cappella and the work the students put in, and how does that look to continue. There was a question about masks ordered specifically for singing, and I'm going to answer this in a few ways. First, as far as a cappella goes, this is considered a club activity. And right now there will be no in-person live club activities after school, at least for the first month of September. So we will have to find ways to make this function virtually. I've already had some conversations with Mr. Paltritz about this. There is an additional a cappella advisor this year that will be assisting, which will help in the flexibility of scheduling. And we are excited that the a cappella program has grown to have an additional co-advisor. But once after school activities begin again, once we're allowed to, it's not going to change the social distancing requirements at 12 feet with the advisor and the assistant advisor. We just can't get around that. But we certainly understand that there is a lot of work. We know that students do get together on their own and rehearse often. We have not given them a directive to do that. If they do, we would just hope that they are maintaining the proper social distancing and guidelines to keep themselves as safe as possible. But they have been given no directive to rehearse on their own at this point, or at any point during this pandemic. In regards to masks and singing, there's some conflicting reports on the effectiveness of specific masks for singing. And all the research I have done has pointed to regular face masks, cloth N95 ones, all being just as effective as a singing face mask. So we will continue. The face masks that the students bring into school will be fine. We're confident with the 12-foot spacing and the covered masks that the specific singing masks won't be necessary. And again, I'm not so convinced from the research I've done that they are any more effective than a regular face mask. Okay, then there was a question in regards to how many students can be in the choir rehearsing together at one time and using different spaces. This is something that, again, I covered a little bit before, but I'll speak again. We are looking to use the auditorium as much as possible for choir for the high school. And that can fit approximately so many students. They still have to be 12 feet apart, masked. Now, if there is a situation where they cannot use the auditorium and they have to use the choral room, we can fit a certain number of students in the room masked at 6 feet apart, and they could work on alternative assignments. We have discussed this. Basically, the ideal plan A is to use the LGI for choral classes for now. If there is something that happens and we can't use that space for, then we would put as many kids as possible into the choir room and have them work on an alternative assignment, music-based, music-related, just not singing at 6 feet apart. There was a concern about students learning a string instrument with a mask on, and it being difficult, particularly for a fourth grade student, and this won't be as strenuous as an activity as anything else. It'll be an opportunity for them to learn the instrument, but having a mask on to learn the string instrument shouldn't be a problem at all. It's not something that I have envisioned being an issue. Okay, there was a question about 5th and 6th grade ensembles and 7th and 8th grade ensembles and how they're going to be done. Will lessons be made available for remote students and things like that? The short answer, yes. The ensembles through 5th through 8th grade, they're going to be given weekly assignments on Google Classrooms for the band, orchestra, and chorus. They are not going to have a period in which they meet virtually, but they will have assignments for the course. There will still be pull-out lessons for band and orchestra in accordance with the social distancing requirements. We will have lessons available for students who are remote learning, as well as having them included in the ensembles. So if you're remote learning, you're still going to get your lesson scheduled. If you are, you're still going to be part of the ensemble, still working towards the same goal as every other group. But there is no zero period that would allow us to have the lessons in the schedule at the middle school level. Okay, there was another question about small group lessons and being pulled out of core classes with only 2 live teaching sessions for certain subjects, and how much of that can be done on a remote learning day. I believe that I answered this before. We will try to pull out of the least restrictive times during the day. There are just, again, too many students to do the program completely virtually. Again, due to space requirements and things like that. Peer tutoring is always great, but even if we did that, that means students would be pulled out of class extra, and we don't want to do that either. If peer tutoring wants to happen outside of school, that's at the discretion of any parents or families. And obviously, we would encourage you to keep social distancing practices. Additional teachers are not needed at this time. We'll have the ability to cover all the students' lessons. We'll have ability to have 1 live lesson per week, 1 virtual lesson the following week, and try not to pull students out of consecutive classes. That's something that we've always done. We will continue to have that practice and keep that as smooth flowing as we can. Okay, there was a question about the ensemble periods, and I guess this is definitely aimed at the high school, or what's going to happen if they can't use these large spaces. So I'll go through a little bit of the process of how we plan to triage that if something happens. Right now, a majority of the physical education classes are intended to happen outdoors. While that happens, that frees up space for us to use, particularly the gymnasium, which can hold the amount of students that will be in classes on the days that we have class. So with that being said, the goal is to have them rehearse in there as much as possible. If for some reason weather is inclement and the students have to come in and use the gymnasium at that point, we can't be in there during the times band and symphonic band and wind ensemble happens. Then, similar to what I said about the choir before, we can fit a certain amount of students into the band room at 6 feet apart, and they will work on an alternative assignment, music-based, but something led by the teacher. And there is music technology and subscriptions that all the kids are going to be having in the high school level. So things will be based on that, different project-based learning things, all involved with music. And the goal is to try to keep as few students overflowed having to go someplace else as possible. We don't want to do that. That's the very, very last thing we would want any of them to do. The goal is to get as many kids as we can in the best situation we can, given the factors that we may not necessarily be able to control. But nonetheless, everybody will be doing music regardless. Okay, I think I just answered that question. All right, there was a question about music technology and the implementation of that, and particularly guitar. I think I can offer you some clarification on some of these. So I can proudly say that Plainview Old Bethpage is probably one of the leaders in New York State in regards to music technology. And we're not playing for second. People are trying to follow us with what we've done. And this goes from third grade all the way through 12th grade. I'm confident that this music technology really serves as an instructional tool for the music department. It has not replaced real playing. Real playing still exists. Real ensemble work still exists. Real lessons still exist. But this music technology has taken us to the next level. With that being said, all the teachers have experience using this now, and they're continuing to use it and be something that they can continue to implement into their classes as they have. Some of these programs include Be a Recorder Star for the elementary 3rd and 4th graders. We have Flat.io, which is note composition software. Soundtrap, which is basically a version of GarageBand that is completely cloud-based. It integrates with Google Classrooms. It is able to be worked collaboratively. So if I am here at my office, my beautiful office here at my home, and somebody, Mr. Shirello, is using his Soundtrap account in his beautiful home, we could actually be working on the same track at the same time remotely together, which is pretty incredible. So we will continue to be utilizing these and utilize these programs. There's also Sight Reading Factory, there's Smart Music, there's Noteflight. These are all things that we've done in the past and we are going to do even more. I've been able to use my budget to purchase a significant amount of subscriptions for students so that they can be involved in those activities. And we fully intend to continue using that. And the same can be said also for music theory and AP music theory, as they have a text now that is completely web-based with different web-based activities that they can do on their own as well. So full integration. As far as guitar goes, Mr. Dentrone at the high school always does an incredible job. Spoke with him today. We are going to give the students an option to bring their own guitar to use if they don't want to use one of the school guitars. And as far as purchase or rental of additional instruments, this is something that is always fluid as things come up, but we will get as many of those as we need for the students to have. We intend to fully keep that as possible, as we always have done. And as far as the remote learning days, will there be an option for maybe some guest speakers from colleges or performers or lectures and things like that? Sure. We've done that in the past while the kids have been in school. So I don't see that not continuing now. Usually that's at the discretion of the teacher with some of the connections they have. I know that some of our music teachers at the high school have brought in such wonderful guests, artists, and some even via virtually. Last year, Mr. Bartley brought in a working musician from California and did a Zoom or Google Meet with some of his students then, which was really incredible. I got to chime in and see that. So that'll be at the discretion of the teachers. Right now, the goal first is let's get started. Let's get the kids making some music, and then we can work on doing some of those things a little bit later. But we've done it in the past, and we will continue to do it now as best as we can. There was a question about accommodations being made for orchestra band, just as academic subjects. Learning instruments is a hands-on practice. Yeah, we agree with that. And that's why we haven't gotten rid of the lesson program. That's why the lesson program is fully intended to continue in the best way that we can, given the circumstances we are. That's why we have made plans to have the kids involved in music at different levels, depending on what we can do based on factors we can't always control. But that's fully the intention. And we know that lessons being hands-on is important. That's why we're saying at the discretion of the teacher, if you want to make up a lesson virtually, they may have to see the teacher to learn a specific technique or breathing or sight reading or notation, something like that. Okay, then there was a question on, can I explain what a typical lesson or class time would look like for students who have chosen remote learning? Will they have the teacher in school? Can you please explain in detail remote learning days for hybrid learners? Okay, in this area, I have to be a little bit more broad at this time, but all students who are going to be totally remotely learning are going to be involved in music as well. We're not going to make that an experience that they can't have to the fullest extent as any other student who is hybrid can have. So there will be music teachers for the general music classes. I explained before how the ensembles will work. That work will still exist. Now, even at the hybrid level, particularly at the high school, because band, orchestra, and chorus is a class period, during those times, on the alternative days, there's still going to be work for those students as well. No matter what day it is, some student is going to be remote. So there will be remote assignments every day for the band. For the orchestra, for the chorus, that will be contributed to Google Classroom. Even if you are at home learning, we will make sure that you are fully aware of the content and that you have your lesson scheduled as it should be. Okay. There was a question about Tri-M and using NSMA scores. Unfortunately, last year NSMA was canceled. But I'm confident that we will continue to evaluate students as we have. Last year, Mr. Bartley, who's the TRIUM advisor at JFK High School, he and I came up with some criteria, not including NSMA scores, that could promote acceptance into the TRIUM Music Honor Society. And I'm confident that we will continue that. We will continue to look at the application process, keeping some of those requirements that have existed in the past, but also some of the requirements going forward may have to change. We are not in the business of having kids not having kids have available some of these honor societies because of requirements that are outside of our control. So it's our job to make sure that what we can control, we do as fairly as possible. And we did that last year, and we will continue to have those kids have that option to participate in TRIUM. So, okay, there was a question about NSMA not taking place. So is there something that students who work on NSMA solos can do? Last year, a few teachers actually did do a virtual NSMA recital. There were a handful of kids that from the schools that did it that participated. It wasn't expected to be a full performance because it is a solo. And then you go from performing for one judge to maybe performing for a larger group of people if you're in a room like this. But with that being said, we do believe that NSMA is going to take place in the spring. How that's going to exist has not come down with many details yet, but we do believe that it is going to happen. And as that information comes from NSMA to me, I will share that out. I'll put it on the music website. I'll try to get email blasts out. I'll host other Zoom meetings so I can be clear about it. But we will continue to have those available. Okay. With that being said, I should also include the information that All National, as of today, has been canceled, unfortunately. All State is going to be done virtually. The in-person aspect of that has also been canceled, sadly. All Eastern has been canceled, and All County also, unfortunately, is postponed with a different experience pending. I sit on several different boards, one for Nassau County, one for New York State, and work with NSMA pretty closely on lots of things. And I know that these decisions were done with the utmost care and considerations, and they really waited as long as possible to make the decisions that they did for this. It's an unfortunate circumstance to the world we live in right now, and particularly for this year's students. But they did the best that they could. Okay, there was a question about concerts being streamed and how students will achieve this with limited to no time together. Will concerts have it in all ensembles? I don't have an expectation and don't foresee a concerts in December happening. Simply because we have so many restrictions right now. It's going to take extra work to make sure that those do happen. I'm hoping that in the spring we can have full concerts again with people. And in questions about live streaming it, this has always been a goal of mine to live stream concerts. We have recorded concerts and put them on the YouTube POB media page, the POB music page, and things like that to be seen. But I do support concerts being live streamed for sure, simply because you can reach more people. To divulge a little bit personally, my two lovely parents live in Florida. Whenever they come to visit, particularly around the holidays, they always want to come to the JFK High School choir concert. So I know that even they would love to see a streamed concert. My father's actually a graduate of Plainview Old Bethpage long before I got here. But he was a trumpeter in the band. But yes, the goal ultimately would be to eventually live stream our concerts when we can. Okay, those were the questions that I was initially sent. That's a lot of information. As I see questions coming in, we've got some great ones. But before I answer these, I'm just going to quickly go over some of the music department plan. And as I'm thinking about this, first I'm going to go over just a little bit of housekeeping things, if you will. So all of the schools have been ordered cleaning supplies for instruments. We've ordered a particular EPA approved super slick steri spray that will help clean certain surfaces of instruments. Now, every instrument and every piece of equipment that we have, including music stands, all can be safely cleaned using different materials. So for instance, metal, hard rubber, and plastics can all be cleaned with the Steri-Spray. It could also be cleaned with 50% water, 50% white vinegar, 50% water, 50% hydrogen peroxide. On particularly wood instruments, like guitars, basses, cellos, violins, violas, we want to keep that as organic as possible because you don't want to ruin the finish on that. So for that, you can use the Steri-Sprays as well, but it would be more recommended to use the water and white vinegar. If we're going to use a bleach-based product, that has to be diluted with water, and that could really only be used to clean metallic instruments only. As far as pianos and keyboards, those can be safely wiped down with the Clorox wipe. So I'm going to start talking just a little bit about music at different levels. The easiest one we have to talk about right now is kindergarten to 6th grade general music. As all the students are going to be in their homeroom or in their class for all periods of all day, the music teachers will be pushing into their classes to do music lessons. And I spoke a little bit earlier about the music technology that we fully plan to implement. We are working on having some basic instruments for our kids K through 4. I'm getting some price quotes on trying to get a shaker and some rhythm sticks per kid for every kid in the elementary school that they can keep in their desk that the teachers can use for different rhythmic activities. So 5th and 6th grade music has a little bit more historical and music theory aspects to it, as well as the incorporation of music technology, including some of this project-based learning. One of my favorites that I've seen 5th and 6th grade do are soundtrack projects involving rondo form. And we've had some amazing things really be produced like that. So that's how K to 6 general music is going to exist. Now, 4th grade instrumental, as I said before, there are going to be no ensembles right now for 4th grade. Those typically don't start till January anyway. So those won't happen at the beginning of the year, but their lessons will. And as I said, we will have one pull-out lesson, one virtual lesson based on our spacing needs to reinforce the lessons that we can. And the same thing for 5th and 6th grade, instrumental and chorus. Chorus is going to be simply done by Google Classroom. In 4th grade, our general music teachers are also our chorus teachers. And there is no expectation right now that chorus will be done at the beginning of the year, as they've had to take on other additional sections. But again, chorus, even if they were doing it, would have to be 12 feet apart, and we don't have the space to necessarily do that right now. But as far as learning songs and things like that, that will happen later on. It's not gone. It will just happen later. Okay. 7th and 8th grade general music, that will be done again on the hybrid schedule as all the other classes are. The primary goal, because those are the music tech-based courses, Music Studio 7, Music Studio 8, will all be done this year on Chromebooks. Because the computers that they had, the Mac computers, are shared spaces right now, and we would not be able to optimize those to their fullest capacity. So we've put into place curriculum and supportive curriculum using instructional technology to make sure that those classes can exist through the digital mediums that we have, and that can keep the content fresh and progressive through the entire thing. Now, as far as recorders go, recorders are going to be postponed until January. A recorder is a legitimate instrument. You can get toy ones and things like that, but ultimately it is a wind instrument with expectoration from a person. So we're going to hold off on those because even to play the recorder, we would have to be 12 feet apart. So that will be postponed tentatively right now to January of 2021. Now, to talk a little bit about instrumental work for 5th through 8th grade, their lesson program, again, will still exist. A live lesson, a virtual lesson, probably the following week, with Google Classroom assignments per the ensembles, but without the ensembles rehearsing. I spoke pretty in detail before regarding the high school plans, but I can briefly touch upon that now again. And I'm going to start with the easy ones first. Guitar, there's plenty of room in the guitar room for everybody who will be in school on those days to learn guitar. If you're fully remote learning and taking guitar, we have a plan for them too, which that will be let known by the teacher to the students, and you have the option to bring in your own guitar to use that or use the school. Safety equipment will be provided 6 feet apart in the rooms. Same thing with music theory and AP music theory, which I touched on a little bit before. Excuse me 1 second, I just need a little water. Music theory and AP music theory will exist again in the orchestra room where they are, safely distanced, 6 feet apart. They will be using a lot of their Chromebooks for that as well. The jazz ensembles, they will take place. There is only about 20 of them in the jazz ensemble. So halftime either for those will only be 10 in the classroom, and that can safely fit in the band room. As we said with orchestra, the orchestra room is big enough because orchestra can be done 6 feet apart with masks. The orchestra room at the high school is big enough to hold the amount of students that will be in orchestra on the days that they are in school. So we don't anticipate that there being much overflow, if any, and that all the kids in school will be able to take orchestra 6 feet apart in the orchestra room. Band, as I said, the majority of it will be in the gymnasium, 12 feet apart. Lessons will be rotated through. We will optimize our time. We will optimize our space. And as we go through that, percussionists can be 6 feet apart. Online resources will be included. And I spoke in length before about the lessons. And the same thing with chorus. Chorus will be 12 feet apart in the auditorium, unless we have to get kicked out of the auditorium. Then, like band, they will be in their room 6 feet apart, working on another music assignment with the teacher that will be outside of performance with expectorations. Okay. So now I will answer the questions that have come in from the Google Doc, and I thank you all for your patience. You've all been waiting so beautifully and so patiently, and I really, really appreciate it. I know this is a lot of information, but please know we've given as much care and consideration and concern to try to keep this as active as we can for our students. So I appreciate your patience and your time and your support above all. I mean, we have a pretty fantastic central administration and a pretty wonderful Board of Education that has given us lots of resources to be able to have music this way. And it is not that way in other districts, unfortunately. Other districts have canceled live playing altogether. Other districts have music teachers teaching other subjects, teaching breakout sessions, teaching everything but music. Our music teachers are still teaching music and fully music, which is a testament to the support of the program. So truly, thank you all. Thanks to the music staff, thanks to the students, thanks to the parents, thanks to everybody for really making that happen. Okay, the first question that was received: do 6th graders in Matlin Middle School be able to attend person and chorus? No. Chorus, band, and orchestra at both middle schools will be done. They'll be registered for chorus. They'll be in a chorus Google Classroom with a weekly assignment that can be done at their leisure from week to week, but they are not meeting in person. Yes, there was a question about pull-out lessons for instruments. Will voice lessons in the high school follow the same 2-week pattern? Potentially, yes. There are less kids in the chorus than there are in the band, so there may not be a need to do every other week. But as the schedule is made, we're going to know that within the first week of school. So again, I had some conversations today with Mr. Paltrowitz talking about that, and we know that as we make it, there's going to be changes that are going to have to be made, and a lot of that's just going to involve the spacing that we can have and when students can come down and trying to rotate through. It's going to be a challenge, but we're going to do our best. So the goal is to ultimately get them as many lessons as we can that would be in a normal quarter. Okay, another question. In 4th grade, will students still be able to drop off their instruments in the music room, or they will be required to keep them in class. They're going to keep them in class and bring them to the class and then bring them back. Just so, because that will limit traffic flow in the buildings. Now, some instruments will be already available for those students in the classroom. So they're not going to have to bring in a bass and haul a bass from their 4th grade class to the music room. No, we have low brass, low strings are always, we give a student a sister instrument that they keep at home and then they have in school as well, so that they don't have to do that. And again, we will have cleaning materials. We try to limit the amount of instruments that are shared. We almost never do it to begin with. And especially we're going to implement that this year, but great question. Thank you. How often do I suggest changing reeds for woodwind instruments? Should a new one be used each time the instrument is used because of COVID? That's a really great question. Thank you so much for whoever put that up, because that's not a question that I've gotten yet, and hopefully one that I can answer. Only one person uses a reed. So as long as the same person is using the reed, there's no need to change it every time unless it breaks. But I wouldn't suggest sharing reeds. So everybody should really have their own box of reeds for woodwind instruments, and don't be like, hey, here's my reed, you can use mine for the day. That's not going to be allowed. But a fresh reed, as long as it's not broken, if you want to have a fresh reed every day, it doesn't hurt. Is it necessary? No, because again, when the reed comes off, it's either staying with that student's instrument or it's going in the case of that student's own personal instrument. So it wouldn't necessarily be a concern that I have. Do students need to pick up one of the instruments? Is that mandatory? No, instrument playing is not mandatory. However, I strongly encourage it, simply because it's a great experience. There are countless studies that exist in the world that show the correlation between music and academic growth, between music and tactile skills, between music and social emotional learning. There are numerous studies that show how the study of an instrument, how the study of music really does help the brain development of a child, all the way into adulthood. It builds what we call neuroplasticity, or neural pathways in the brain that actually help make the brain more alive. It's pretty incredible, the research that has gone into it, and I'm not going to bore you with that tonight, but I love talking about that. So yeah, play an instrument. We have a policy in Plainview that any kid who wants to play an instrument at any time in the district can play one. So even if a senior in high school decides that all of a sudden he or she wants to play flute and they're a senior, they can play. We're not going to ever tell them no. They can play. That's going to come with some differentiation of instruction, some different requirements for lessons and things like that. But the important thing is, if a kid wants to play, they play. End of story. How will 4th grade strings be working? Great question. 4th grade strings will be a pull-out lesson program until ensembles begin. Our 2 elementary string teachers, first we have Mr. Geluso, who is in Stratford Road and Old Bethpage, and brand new this year we have Miss Hazelton, who will be in Pasadena and Parkway, and they will have a schedule of students that are pulled out with an in-person lesson and a virtual lesson the following week, and ensembles to begin later on in the year. How does my child who is in 6th grade drop chorus or orchestra? If you're looking to drop an instrument, sad face emoji. But you'd have to just email your guidance counselor, let them know you want to drop. And just know that if you do want to drop, you're always welcome back. You're always welcome back. Okay, there's a question on, please explain what the experience would be like for a 4th grader with a new instrument. And then to tie that, there's a question underneath, how will 4th grade band orchestra lessons work for remote learners? I'm going to tie this all together as one question, one answer for you. Very simply, 4th graders given a new instrument, they're taught how to open the case and how to put it together at the first lesson. And then the following lesson, they are taught how to make some sound out of it. The experience this year will be different. Unfortunately, it'll be different, but it will, nonetheless, we have some pretty incredible 4th grade teachers, and they've already started to plan how they want to meet with kids, what they're going to do when they see kids, how they're going to make it fun and engaging for them, and to make the instrument something that they can go to. Music is an expressive thing. It's an art. It's a craft. And our goal was to make that craft something that the students will always have. This is, I can confidently say that none of our fourth grade teachers look at the instrument when they're teaching it as, okay, this kid's going to play until they're done in high school. They want to instill that love of music for kids for a lifetime. So for a new fourth grader with a new instrument, it's learning the basics, learning how to make sound out of it, learning how to put it together, learn how to not break it, but ultimately learn how to make some songs and learn how to play with your friends and learn how to play in harmony. And when I say harmony, sure, there's musical harmony and how a whole band and orchestra or chorus sounds together when everybody's together. But there's also learning how to be in harmony, be in the balance of something bigger than yourself, something, a higher call of what music really gives to people. How will fourth grade band and orchestra work for remote learners? You will get the same lesson experience. You may have to make an appointment to come pick up an instrument though. And that you'll hear from the individual teacher. And we'll work on that. But the virtual lesson will be the same as the lesson in school. Unfortunately, it won't be necessarily hands-on, but we will do our best to make that virtual lesson something enjoyable and engaging for you. I think I answered this before. Will students playing large instruments, cello and bass, still be able to keep one instrument at school and one at home? If so, whether instruments kept at school shared? If so, will they be regularly cleaned? Yes to all of those. Like I said before, we're going to have cleaning materials. We're going to make sure that they're clean and sanitized. We try not to have them share when we don't have to, only in an emergency. But yes, to all that. I think I answered before about the child participating in fourth grade band. Again, it's all a lesson program for at least until January. So they will be involved in that. How will this be handled with practice at school? I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Why does band appear as 12th period for my 7th grader as Madeline? That's just a placeholder. Okay. that's interesting that it appears as 12th period. That's got to be a mistake. But if they are enrolled in band, it should be on their roster at some point. Even though they're not going to have a live in-person ensemble, there still will be work associated with the course. Okay, can I explain the POB middle school band schedule? On the school schedule form, it is listed every day until 3:41. Is that the case? Again, I'm not so sure why that specific time is appearing, but it's probably close to when it's from the time students enter the building to the time they leave will be a time that they have to take a lesson. So that's probably the reason why it appears that way. It is not the specific period because again, there are no ensemble periods currently for the middle school. All right, just answer that. If you're going to 5th grade and want to switch your instrument, can you? Yes, but that's at the discretion of the teacher, that the instrument you're leaving and then the instrument you want to take. Typically, if it's a band instrument, it's easier to switch from a woodwind to a woodwind or from a brass to a brass. Percussion is limited because we don't want to have too many percussionists at any given time. We want to try to keep that very, very condensed, really. Or if you want to switch from like flute to violin, we have to meet with the teachers and talk about it. It is an option, but again, that's discussed with teachers. Okay, there was another question about 4th grade orchestra practice schedules, concerts. Again, those concerts don't happen until the spring. December, we're not anticipating concerts at this time. And even if we do, we're going to be using virtual performances. And that's going to be what the teachers can do based on the level of the students are able to play. We'll go from there. This is a question, and where does the high school drama program stand? I'm going to ask the person who wrote that question. I'm going to respond to you privately in an email because there are still some things, because the high school drama program is considered a club, and we do have some tentative plans to propose to operate that. So that information should come out a little bit later, but whoever asked that, if you want some more specific details on some of that, we can talk about that later. I want to stick to some music stuff here, but I appreciate that question very, very much. Again, there was a question, when will orchestra take place in middle school? Pull-out lessons will exist, and orchestra will take place, again, in the Google Classrooms with a weekly virtual assignment. And then the final question, your son played cello in 4th grade. Can he continue to play cello in 5th grade? And how can you rent a cello from the school? The teacher will have information on how to rent a cello from the school. It'll be done online through My School Bucks. And yeah, of course he can continue to play. If you're worried he's not, check with the guidance counselor, make sure it's on a schedule. But absolutely, you can continue to play. As I said before, our goal is to have kids play, and they can play whenever they feel. We don't hold them back. Okay, so with that being said, I've answered all of the questions that I've received and gone through the plan. I have a few minutes that I could offer up to live questions if some people would like to ask some questions now, maybe something that wasn't covered. You can unmute and
Can I just ask a quick question, Mike?
of course.
Jamie Landis. For
Hi, Miss Landis.
how are you?
Good, thank
For
you.
instrument rental, particularly for remote students, should we go with all music, or is it recommended that we go through the district?
Well, that's a great question, Miss Landis, and I'm going to answer that as best as I can. We every teacher is going to have a list provided to them of recommended vendors. We don't recommend one vendor over the other. So it's up to you where you want to go to rent that through. We only offer rental for certain instruments, particularly low brass, low strings, and other instruments need to be rented individually by the parents. That's always been the district policy. But I can't recommend one particular vendor over another. There are lots of them out
So
there.
it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
And should we be prepared to have an instrument for day one at the start of the school year? Even though I think the answer is no.
You don't need an instrument on the very first day because the teachers still need to make the lesson pull out schedule and things like that. So they're
Right.
working and they're working very hard. But I would say by the second week is a safe time to have it.
Right. And my last question regarding it is because I understand how the schedule works for in-building, but in terms of remote, should we expect one pull-out every 6 days for K to 4?
For K to 4,
In terms of lessons?
well, it would only be 4th graders that take
Right.
lessons.
But
So,
sorry,
Um,
I'm thinking not 5th or 6th grade in terms of that. So for 4th grade, sorry. For 4th grade.
So we were actually working on that today and discussing how we're going to do that. I believe we're going to try to have one lesson per week on a 5-day cycle. So this way the students can have one in-person lesson a week and then one virtual reinforcement lesson the following week. We did discuss that.
For remote
Yeah,
students, that would mean one lesson per week, just virtually.
Well, yeah, that means they would have a Google Meet, doing like I'm doing now, teaching.
Yeah,
instruments.
no. That's
Okay.
what I just wanted to confirm that I had a proper understanding. I was also getting questions from parents. I wanted to disseminate the correct information.
No problem. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, please,
right,
thank
other-
you, Mr. Rogers.
You're very welcome. Other questions out there? How can I help you? Feel free to unmute, and we still have 50 participants, so I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that we have.
Mike,
Yes.
hi, it's Sharon Schwartz.
Hey, Ms. Schwartz, how are you?
I am well, thank you.
Thanks
Well,
for joining us tonight.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing a second go around with this because I missed the first one.
No
Great.
problem. And again, for everybody who's here this evening, I apologize. The information got out a little disjointed last time. Certainly wasn't the intention, but I'm glad to be able to do another one today. And we made the recording available from the last one on the music portion of the district webpage. And this one should be up there in the next day or two as well.
Awesome. And I'm the one who asked the drama question, by the way.
Oh, okay, Ms. Schwartz. I'm sorry about that.
No problem. I'm just a little confused with the chorus, with the high school chorus lessons.
Mhm.
It's still going to be a mix of in-school and remote?
Well, the intention is, let me start again, Ms. Schwartz. I apologize. Maybe. We would like to have in-person lessons if possible. It may not be possible. Now, different ensembles have different amounts of kids. The chorus has a certain number of kids involved in it. If we can fit them in for a 1 week, if we can fit them in at least once a week for a lesson, great. If not, then they'll have a remote lesson the next week. But it's really going to depend on the schedule and once we make it. And the teachers have started working on that already this week. Mr. Palchowitz is he's already got his eye on measuring things out and putting things together and really helping put it together. So that is definitely something we've discussed. I would say most likely, yes, that's how it's going to be. If it changes, great. If not, no worries. It'll be how it goes. Fortunately for Mr. Palchowitz, he I think was the first teacher in all of POB to use smart music. So that's always been part of his curriculum anyway, which is just a great piece of music technology that we really utilize well. So
Awesome, thank you.
You're very
And
welcome.
I gotta tell you, the kids are so glad to have music this year, because as you said, with so many districts not, they're thrilled.
I have to say I'm thrilled as well. Today marks my 15th year in education. So this morning, thank you. So this morning I called one of my best friends, and very much like Mr. Holland's opus, one of my best friends is a gym teacher, a phys ed teacher. And I called him this morning and I said, 15 years ago, we started together. And he laughed, but he explained, he goes, it's weird, but it's really good to be back.
I'm sure.
Mr. Rogers, this is Lisa Shackman. I don't know if you could hear me.
Hi, Miss Shackman. How are you?
I'm good. I just have one
How's
follow-up.
my buddy Max doing?
He's doing great. Thank you. Learning lots of
Excellent.
music. He said by the end of this semester, he'll probably have done 30 pieces of music, I think, in one
Wonderful.
semester.
Well, tell him we're proud of him, and we hope
Thank
that
you.
he comes and visits us soon.
I'm sure he will. My question just goes back to, like, that beautiful choir virtual video that they did like in high school. That was so
One
nice.
Voice.
At One Voice. And I know even for my son, who was a senior and very good with music theory, etc., it was something he really wanted to get more involved in, but there really wasn't that expertise within the district, other than, I guess, they used like Nikki Brenner, had to hire someone. Is there, whether for a cappella or choir or really any of the other groups, is there plans to utilize stuff like that? Because I think both for kids to learn how to use stuff like that, and actually just to have the opportunity to produce more than just one piece of music for a long time, I think that would be very good, especially like my daughter's involved in a cappella, and I never got to have my children do a duet, and I just feel it's very sad that they could, like other schools, from what we saw, from Max really being associated with other kids who were going to college for music, there were other districts, not necessarily New York, but that did a little bit more with that. And so I'm just wondering if there was anything in the budget for that, and if you have any plans to do more of that.
So the co-advisor to acapella is Nikki Brenner.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, she was the one who applied.
Okay.
I would imagine that I haven't spoken to her or Mr. Palchowitz about this yet, but that is a good way to have a cappella function in the very beginning, virtually, maybe to talk about how to do something like that. I can say that there has been conversations about doing more virtual performances intermittently throughout the fall in lieu of a full concert, but trying to have something happen. The teachers want to do something, so I can tell you that I will let him know, because I think that's a great suggestion. I have a feeling that is probably something he's already thought about implementing as well. So I'm happy to report that. Okay.
Oh, and that's fabulous.
Great.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, Ms. Shackman.
Hello?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Hi, it's Marilena DeFalco. I just wanted to ask a question. My son is going to the 7th grade, and this year will be his first experience with the choir. My two older kids were big a cappella participants, and I'm looking forward to my son also doing that in the future, because he does love to sing. So we're actually starting with fully remote. So my understanding is, I guess right now choir is just going to be a weekly assignment. Like, will that be an assignment that has to do with their part for a music piece? Like, I don't understand like how the choir is going to be, like how that's going to work with just an assignment. And will there be lessons? Will it be like something that eventually they can come back together and perhaps have a part in the music? Let's say he's an alto or whatever, tenor or whatever part that he would get? Like, how is that going to work?
That's a great question, Mr. Falco. Thank you for asking again. I'm going to do my best to give you as much clarification as I can regarding that. So choir at the middle school doesn't have pull-out lessons. Unfortunately, this is the best way we can do it. But Mr. Lombardo is our 7th grade choir teacher, and I can say that he actually put in a lot of effort over the summer to really think about a curriculum and how he can effectively do that. So there, like all choir things, I do expect fully that there will be lessons in vocal technique and breathing and tone production and articulation and projection and resonation and reading music and things like that. How he's going to do that will take form at his discretion, and he's done that very well, and he's put out a great product the past few years. So that'll continue. And if you need additional support with that, like a live one-on-one Google Meet or something, let us know, and we'll try to accommodate that if your child has some questions.
And can I just ask one more question?
Sure.
I know someone had asked about, I know you're not going to answer this, but someone had asked about the high school drama club. My son was also involved with the Matlin drama club with Mr. Bonica, and that would be another thing that, I know a lot of kids are possibly looking forward to, if that there was going to be some sort of drama even at the middle school level. But I know it's hard though with everything going on.
Yeah. So with the 2 middle school musicals and the high school musical, that is considered a singing activity. So they would have to be 12 feet apart to do that. I don't have full complete answers just yet on how that's going to take shape. I don't want to necessarily say it's wait and see, because we know what some of the restrictions are. And I think right now is our goal is to get the high school stuff off the ground first, and that will dictate how it trickles down to the middle schools. But I saw Mr. Bonica yesterday. He happened to be in, and I spoke a little bit to him then, and he's got a plan that how he can execute a show as best as he can, in terms of an option for show and what feasibility may be able to work. Listen, I know how important the drama program is in the district, and I want to do everything I can to support to make it happen. So we will do that. We will fully support that. It may be different than it has been in previous years, but nonetheless, it'll be still an experience. We'll try to make it the best we can for the kids. Mr. Bonica's room is just down the hall from my office, so I stop by and talk to him every day or two, and we talk about this stuff all the time. So I'll pop in during the week and see if he has any ideas, and I'll shoot some ideas with him, and then I'm sure we'll let the kids and the families know once we have a more definitive plan on how we're going to make that work. We're hoping that by the time.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And I can just for everything here. We're hoping by the time that he starts rehearsing, that we don't have to be 12 feet apart anymore, and we can actually put something out. But
yeah, that would be great. I know it's crazy, but thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Mr. Falco. Any other questions?
Hi, Mr. Rogers.
Hello. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I feel like I'm hosting a radio show. This is great.
That's good. That's good. My 4th went up to 5th to Matlin. She was in an orchestra in JJP. So is she going to be signed up automatically to the orchestra, or does she have to sign up?
She should have been automatically matriculated in. We do give articulation lists, and the teachers work on that together. If she's not, all you have to do is just email the guidance counselor, and we'll take care of it. That's usually a pretty easy fix.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. I feel like I'm Frasier. I'm listening.
Mr. Rogers, one more question.
Sure. Who am I talking to?
Darren Schwartz.
Hello, Ms. Schwartz.
Lisa had mentioned a cappella before. I know it's technically a club, but since it was mentioned, are there going to be auditions this year, or is it just going to continue as is with who's left in the clubs from last year?
I'm sure that there will be auditions in some way, in some form. I'll speak to Mr. Palchwitz a little bit more about that. I think we're waiting for more of a directive on what clubs are going to exist in person and when, and what's going to be run virtually. I think once we have more of a directive from that, and that's going to come from above us, we'll be able to answer that a little bit more fully.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Mr. Rogers?
Hello, who am I speaking to?
Hi, this is Michael. I'm listed as Lana, but it's her husband.
Good evening.
Hi. I have a son going into 6th grade who is in the orchestra, the string bass, and I'm not sure if you can answer this, but as somebody else mentioned, orchestra shows up on his program and his schedule as being every day 12th period at 3:40 something. And I know you've said that that's wrong and that's fine, but I was just curious what the process might be for trying to fix that, since the schedules have sort of been announced and there aren't any obvious holes in the schedule that are blank for which maybe that orchestra should have come in. And he will be attending in person at POB Middle.
That's a great question. I wish I had a great answer for you. I don't know why it's listed as big. We've never had 12 periods in the middle school, so why it's there.
I honestly thought it was one of those things where he just comes home and then it would be done virtually for everybody, you know, after everybody gets off the bus or something, which didn't actually strike me as all that bad an idea, but
it's honestly not really a bad idea at all, but
that said, you're saying it's not that way, so I'm just
no
trying to figure out what in his schedule is going to change and what's going to go away and where it's going to fit. And
well, first I can confidently tell you I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay.
You know, contractually teachers have, you know, their contracted work hours like everybody does. So to do that would be extra form anyway, 12 periods. So I just want to, you know, we got to be respectful of everybody's time, but it's not a mistake that's going to hurt anything, because it should be on their schedule in some way, because if they're going to be involved in it, they should be able to be on the roster so that the Google Classroom is created and things like that. I'll try to find out why it was listed as 12th period at 3:41. Your guess is as good as mine with that.
I'll admit, I'm kind of relieved that other people have asked, so now I know.
And to be honest, this is a really great thing that was brought up here because I wouldn't have known that. So I'll try to do a little recon about how that happened and why that happened. But again, it's not a problem that's going to hurt anything. So it's not gonna make anything more difficult for you.
Gotcha. And then while I have the floor, the other question, and this is just a technical question, is my son obviously was in POB Middle last year for 5th grade, and he finished using his bass probably about 2 days before the end of the semester. And we were just told to hold on to the bass for the summer, which we have. So is there paperwork that I have to deal with now, or do we just continue to hold on to it through this year? Which, you know, I mean, I could care less about the $50 or whatever it is. I just, you know, want to make sure everything's tracked correctly.
Of course. I'm working on that with the band teachers because obviously we wanted to prevent traffic going in and out of the schools with instruments and all sorts of things like that, which is why we let people keep them, and we were hoping that people were going to practice too over the summer. It's actually much easier to know that you have it, but it's going to take some more paperwork on our side in terms of rolling over that inventory from 5th to 6th grade. Now, fortunately, the orchestra teacher is one person in both buildings, so that shouldn't be too bad to keep track of. But we will work that out, and typically it would just be filling out a bond form again and rolling that over. So it's not going to be any additional paperwork to what you already have, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
All right. I figured it was pretty straightforward. I just wanted to remind you more than anything else that some of us still have these instruments from last year. So.
Again, in some ways that actually may work out great. In some ways, I'm sure there are going to need to be changes, but we're trying to make it as easy for everybody as possible.
All right, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Mike, it's Jamie Landis. I have some questions from some parents.
Sure.
Elementary, 4th grade. They want to know that now with the increased restrictions on visitors to the building, and what parents can and cannot drop off, including instruments, what penalties or leniency will the teachers show if the students that have to bring their instruments every day when they have lessons, what will happen, basically?
Well, what will happen if they forget it?
Yes. So, you know.
Nothing. It'll be fine. We're not going to penalize students. We know we'd rather have them in class doing a lesson in some way. You can always learn something from your lesson period, but we're not going to penalize a kid if they forget it. Listen, I had a conversation today with a number of instrumental teachers about this, and our feeling is kids are under a lot of stress right now. We know that. We want music to be a place where they don't have to feel stressed. We want it to be a place where they feel welcome. So We're not going to take a hard line on that. We'll get them to come into the room, still have their lesson. We'll figure out a way to get them involved in it, and then ultimately they'll have a virtual lesson the following week to make up for it anyway. But we're not going to penalize a kid for forgetting an instrument. Not now. You've got enough things to worry about. The parents have enough things to worry about. So don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. We're not going to hurt anybody with that.
Okay, and should we assume habitual offenders will then be spoken to at some point? I'm not kidding. That's an actual question.
Oh, so if a student keeps forgetting an instrument, yeah. Well, if a student keeps forgetting an instrument, the teacher will call home, or the teacher will reach out to the parent and say, like, hey, all right, please make sure they come in with their instrument. How can we help you? How can we solve this together? It's a good question, though. That is a very good question.
Thank you very much on behalf of these parents.
You're very welcome. Okay, if there are no further questions, I just want to take a moment. We have an unsung hero with live streaming these Zoom town halls and music plans, and I'm very lucky. His name is Eddie, and I just want to publicly go on record and thank Eddie, our tech guy, who made time and made effort to make sure that this could reach as many people as possible. So Eddie, thank you very much. I just want to publicly thank you for all the work that you've done, or all the work that all the tech team have done in Plainview Old Bethpage to make these available. So thank you to all of them. Thank you for all that you've given to make sure that this information could get out. As I said before, please, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me or call me. I'll be happy to help you in any way that I can. I'm going to keep the music question reopening questions up. Tomorrow I'll put it on the music department website. So if you have a question that comes up, please submit it through there, and I'll email you in the next couple of days back a response. If you want to email me just a question, it's mrodgers@pobschools.org. Mr. Rogers, as in like Richard Rogers, not Kenny or Will. But so yeah. And again, thank you all for taking the time to be here this evening. Thank you all. Thanks to Janet Herman, the president of MAPOB, who helped gather some questions that I can answer this evening. And thank you to all of our administration, our teachers, our central administration, and above all, our Board of Education for the support that we have. I'm so happy that music will be able to be kept alive. And I look forward to the day that the kids can be in harmony, making harmony. So that's the best thing that I can say. That's my mic drop line for the evening. But as again, I hope you all have a great evening. Best of luck to all of you at the beginning of school. If you have any questions, the teachers are great about getting back to you. You're welcome to reach out to me, and just know that you have all of my paramount support in making sure that this program exists, it's alive, and it's enjoyable, not only for the kids, but for you as well.
Thank you for all your hard work, Mike.
You're very welcome. Really. Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thanks a lot. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Thanks.